Hey guys, it's Julian. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make the modern style of techno that's really popular right now, the style of Yellowheads, Space 92, 1605. I'm also making tracks like this in the style. And yeah, as usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is available at the top of the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And let's dive in. Alright, so here's the track. This is the full arrangement. If you want to hear the full track arrangement, you can hear it at the link at the top of the description. Because in the intro, I just had the shorter little intro version of this. But this is a full track we have here. You can see it's over 7 minutes long. It's almost 8 minutes. And I'm going to go from the top down and break it down while also explaining a bit about the arrangement and stuff kind of all at once. So the first thing I want to talk about is the low end. And you'll notice with this style of track, it's a little bit interesting because we have our standard like techno rumble kick, which I'll play it here so you can actually. So you can see we have like a nice, just punchy kick. This is one of mine that I've layered. We have this layer, which you can see actually just has like, it's that same kick, but it's being high passed. So what we're doing here is we're distorting just the mid range. You can see these two chains inside of this audio effect rack. So we're keeping the low end fine, even though you don't really hear it at the end. But we're just distorting the mids, and then we're kind of boosting that a bit with this EQ going into it. And then you can hear this just creates this nice, really punchy layer that's going to sit really well over top. There's the kick just by itself. And then with this. So yeah, it really brings some life there. We also have a little bit of a short reverb on that, just to kind of give it a little bit more space, because I've heard this in a lot of these tracks, like that, like the kick almost has like a reverb to it, and this is how you do that. You don't put the reverb on the main kick, you put it on this one. And then there's just a high pass at the end. And then we also have a rumble, which is just that main kick doing 16th notes. And then it's being low passed, and then filtered a little bit. We're cutting out like the low lows, like anything below like 30 hertz, because typically like humans can only hear 20 hertz up to 20 kilohertz. That's like our entire range of hearing, right? So if you have frequencies kind of in that like 20 kilohertz or that 20 hertz range, the thing is that you're not really hearing them, but you are feeling them. I've talked about this a lot, so I'll do it briefly here. But it's like, you know, you aren't going to hear those frequencies, but then you're going to play this track in the club, and there's going to be this weird like thing happening. Everybody's feet are going to be like vibrating. And it's essentially just because you didn't do this. And also, I broke down a lot of tracks from these guys on like the spectrum analyzer when I was studying for this video. And I noticed that they're doing this a lot. Like, there's even sometimes, like, I was studying like some Space 92 tracks. Like, it was literally like up to there. Like, anything below like 50 hertz was getting cut off. So it definitely helps to kind of clean up that low end. And then we also just have that. So yeah, so we have our standard rumble kick. But then we also have a main bass, which is just like this fat Reese style bass. You can see, yeah, we just have this one wavetable here. It's just a saw wave with a bunch of unison, and then we're automating that low pass filter throughout the track to kind of like, you know, give some life to it. Like you can hear there, like it opens up right at the end of that intro. You know, it's just a good way to kind of bring this to life. And then this is also going through. It's just being sidechained to the kick. I have a utility on there converting the bass to mono. We have a high pass filter which also gets automated in some parts. And then this EQ here just to cut out some space for the kick. So then we've got that playing. And we also have it playing with this roll bass. So in this roll bass here, you can see this is just playing the root note. It's just da-da-da-da. Almost like a side trance, like trancey style of bass. You'll notice I've got a little bit of nuance with the velocity here, so it's not just da-da-da-da-da-da. Every time on the same velocity, it's kind of like da-da-da-da-da-da. Like it gets more intense over the notes. And that's really what's going to give life to this. So you want to make sure you do something like that to make it a little bit more interesting. And the sound on this one is actually these two wavetables. I took a bit of time and just dialed this in. You know, this like, you kind of want like a more crunchy sort of bass sound. But you don't want to just use like saw waves and square waves. You have to get a little bit more creative with it to get that different texture out of it. And then that's what's going to blend really well with that main Reese bass. You know, because if we just use like saw waves and square waves for this, it's going to clash with the main bass. So So we've got that, and then you can see there's an envelope on the wavetable position. I've got the filter frequency being modulated as well. And that's just going through a little bit of erosion, a little bit of echo, doing dotted eighth notes, some drum bus, which makes it fatter. I have a utility, which is just converting it to mono actually. This washout, which is just for this one part. Right at the end of that there. We also have this low pass filter, which you'll notice like, it's just for that one part, just to make it kind of go down a little bit. You know, it just keeps the arrangement moving. Like it just drops it right down there at that moment. And then we just have a high pass filter, a compressor side chaining into the kick, and then this EQ, which is just cutting out some of those frequencies that might clash with the kick. And yeah, so that's the low end. So it's not always going to be this many basses, but I would definitely wouldn't shy away from having like a few basses like this. Like I think a lot of people think, oh, you can only have one bass in your track, or if you have a rumble, you can't also have basses on top of that. But you can. You just have to know what you're doing. You just have to know like how to kind of keep it all really clean. And then on the group of the low end, all we have is just this high pass filter, which is just coming on like for those transitions there. And that's the low end. So that's the first thing I would start with when you're making a track like this. You know, start with the kick, then get the bass, then you can go and make those other basses. And then you have a foundation. And then the next thing that's really like integral to the foundation of the track is these percussions. So you can hear, you know, it's pretty standard techno stuff, but it's just very lively. You can see like we have like these two hi-hats layered together for the main one, kind of like a punchy one, and then a brighter one. You can see the brighter one's got some reverb. I also have a bit of attack, so that you get just a punch from that main hi-hat, and then that's from this one. We also have a few different like shakers. Like we have this main one, which is just a constant. Which you'll notice, like, this one has a kind of an interesting texture to it. It's a lot more in the mid-range. So it's not going to clash with, like, the brighter hi-hats. But then we also have that one, which is kind of just doubling up these, I guess. But you can hear having that, like this one. Over top of that, it creates, like, a really nice rhythm. And then you just combine that. And there we go. So it's very lively, and it's just because there's one that's going and then one that's just playing a few selective notes in there, combined with the really fat layered hi-hat, and then the last percussion here is just this rim shot. You know, just very sparse. Just hits right there, going through some reverb. And then on the group of percussion, all we have is an EQ8. So all it's doing is it's just for the transition, really mainly in the break here, you know. I really like having like a break where you have the hi-hats, but they're just always coming in. And the reason I use an EQ8 for this is because of the fact that when you use a low-pass filter like Ableton's auto filter, see how it only goes up to like 19.9 kilohertz, and then there's like all this space that's getting cut off there? So if we did that to the percussions, check this out. So here is with that auto filter, it's all the way up, but you'll see, here's with it, and then without it. Really subtle, but it actually does take away some of the high end. But when you use an EQ8, it doesn't do that. So when I'm working with percussion and the hi-hats and I want to really keep those like precious bright frequencies, EQ8 is definitely better for it. And yeah, then after that, we just have the ride. Pretty standard stuff, just comes in and out throughout the track. And yeah, it's just a pretty standard Techno 909 ride. I've got a high-pass filter on there. We have this ping pong echo, which is creating that like wider kind of stereo image, so it stands out from the rest of the percussion. And then I have this EQ here, which is cutting out more low end. It's also cutting out these sharp frequencies up here. So here's without this, and with it. See, I was just like a bit more clean with it. we're just cutting out some of those like peaky kind of like whistly frequencies. And just making the ride that much cleaner and more modern sounding. And then finally I just have this auto pan to make it kind of bounce up a bit. Then we have this vocal atmosphere. This is just one of my samples. It's just in there. I've got that going through the Ultimate Stereo widening rack here. Spread it out a bit and kind of put it in its own place in the mix. I have an auto pan, which is again just kind of making it sound like it's being sidechained. And then finally just the low pass filter, which is really like the biggest part of this, because obviously this is literally just like 2 quarter notes, a half note of audio, but then using the low pass, just constantly like opening and closing and stuff, it can make that feel like it's very fresh and exciting over the course of the whole track, because it's constantly coming in and out. You know, like it's the same sound, but texturally it's different every time that you're hearing it. Then we have the main lead. So I used my patented layering technique here essentially, where we have one lead which is just playing all of the notes. But then we have one lead which plays just the high notes. And then one which is playing just the low notes. And that's almost more like a bass. And each of these 3 layers is very lively and full sounding. But again, like if I just play the lead, just playing the notes by itself, and then if I play it with those, you can hear what it's adding. You know, it's really going to do a lot for the track. And just make your lead feel more dynamic. So for the notes on this one, it's all just based around this G sharp minor scale. That's the key that we're in. You know, it's that standard sort of techno scale. So you can see we have G sharp, then the same G sharp an octave up, then a B, which would be the minor third, this E here, which is, I believe, the 6th. Yeah, and then we have the 5th there, D sharp, and then here we're using the 4th and the 9th. So it's all just notes like that are in that scale, just kind of getting creative, making this repetitive pattern with it. And then for the main lead, what it is it's just 2 saw waves inside of wavetable here. You can see they're detuned a little bit. Going into the filter, which is not doing anything, I have the unison on the shimmer setting, so it's kind of like a more interesting super saw. We have some drum bus on that to fatten it up. We have a high pass filter. And then just this EQ, which kind of boosts a few things. And you also notice, only in the second drop, only in part C here, I have it jump up like every other time it plays, it goes up an octave. And all that is just automating this pitch to come up. So it just keeps it fresh, because each time you're hearing it, it's slightly different. Now for the high lead layer, this is honestly more like a 303 type of sound. So the way this is made is it's a saw wave and a square wave. And then they're going into a bandpass filter, which has the hard shaper on it and a little bit of an envelope on it. Lots of resonance. And then we're just distorting that, and then it's going through some echo and reverb. And yeah, I like this because it stands out from that main lead. Like you can hear what it's adding, and it's not going to clash. And then for the third lead, this is made with wavetable as well, and you can see this one we're using this West Coast fold wavetable, as well as a saw wave, going into a low pass filter, and then you can see the envelope there. And this one's just meant to be like this big, fat, boomy wavetable patch to kind of keep the rhythm going in the low end. And then that's just going through a bit of overdrive, some echo and reverb, and that's pretty much it for that layer. And then on the group, all we have is just a bit of echo to kind of give them all some more space together. The low pass filter, which brings them in and out throughout the track. And then this auto pan, which is making it sound like it's sidechain, without actually sidechaining it to all the rumble cake and everything like that. Then we have these little bass stabs down here. Which are being made a few different ways. So the first 2 here are 303 sounds that I made. So these are really similar actually to that last lead, where you can see this first one is the saw wave going into a bandpass filter again with the sun shaper. We've got the amp on there as well. It's on the boost setting. Oh yeah, you can hear that. That's what gives it that crunch. And then we have an echo, which is just here doing this really fast ping pong to give it like some width. But then also this echo is giving it like that more kind of held out eighth note echo feel. And then we just have a bit of reverb, a bit of saturation and overdrive to make it a little bit fatter and more distorted. And then that's pretty much it. And then the second one is the same patch. You can see it's pretty much all the same stuff. I got rid of that one echo though. But this one is a square wave instead. So you kind of get a little bit of a different flavor when you use a square wave. And then these two are actually just some audio stabs that I have made from like an old project. And then yeah, I just threw those in there at kind of like playing off of each other. Now you'll see I did something kind of cool with this one because we duplicate it and then it's like reversed. So kind of like it just fades back into it like that. But yeah, those are just completely dry. And then this last bass stab here is made using two patches. So we have this wavetable patch, which is, as you can hear, most of the sound, and then this operator, which kind of adds some more fullness to it. So the wavetable is just this one wavetable in here. I've got the filter and the wavetable position being modulated with this envelope. And we even have a little bit of an envelope on the pitch too, because it kind of makes it more punchy. And then this operator patch is just a simple donk bass. It's just 3 sine waves. The third one is up a few octaves. And then we have the filter just not doing anything. So really simple, just fills out that low end in the sound. And then those are just going to a bit of drum bus. You can see I've got the compressor on there, so it's kind of like helping to make them closer together. We have a bit of echo as well, which is just doing 16th notes. And then that's it for those bass stabs. And the main thing with these is just seeing like how much to have and also how they move over time. Like you'll notice like in the beginning, it's not all of them at once ever. Like it's, you know, even if we have these 4 playing, the 5th one is still left out. And then over here it's like that. But then once you get to part C over here, the second part or the third part of the track, that's where we have them all playing at once. So it's like those little subtle things are what's going to make the track, you know, feel like it's growing and changing throughout the track, rather than just kind of randomly peppering these throughout the track, you know. Have like a little bit of them in the intro and then save all of them at the same time for when it actually drops back in. And then the last thing that we have down here will be all the effects. So I'll kind of talk about these all at once, you know. These just sort of add like that movement to the track. You know, kind of carry the track along. Because it's like if you only have your main stuff, you know, I'll turn these off really quick and you can see what I mean. Of course, it's still going to build. But obviously, you need this stuff to really like help carry it through. So like the first thing here would be this little build snare, you know, pretty standard. Just building up with the utility for the volume there. Then you can see we have like this little effect space. This just comes in a few different times. It's just this wavetable patch with like a square wave. And then this verbed wavetable. Got the matrix set up like that. And we also have some reverb and a bit of drum bus and a high pass filter. Then we have like some crashes. Like you can see we got this one. Pretty standard stuff there. There's these effects which are for like the intros and outros. You know, it's important to keep stuff going. Like, you want to make sure that there's something happening in the intro here. If you just have like just the kick, it's gonna be kind of boring. But right off the bat, this tells us like something's about to happen. This is gonna be a serious track, you know. So that's what these layers do. Those are just pretty simple, different effect sounds. Some that I pulled from my Definitive Track Effects sample pack, which I'll leave the link to that in the description. I have this deep vocal which comes in pretty repetitively. You know, just one of those things you don't always notice in the background. Just kind of carries the track along. We have like a little clap. And then there's this riser with this reverse crash. That's from my track build-up sample pack. But yeah, so it's just like this riser that kind of fades out. And then the reverse crash just comes in at the end and does the rest of it. We have this little snare which just comes in like... That kind of stuff can go a long way for your track. Especially like here, like in the break. You know, it's just a nice little thing that's very easy to do, but it's going to add a lot to your track. And then down here, there's just like this little snare right before the drop. We have another little effect sound. Just that one. And then just a little white noise build, which all it is just operator. Got some white noise here. Bandpass filter building it up. Just for that one part leading up to the break, I like to use some kind of effect there that isn't anywhere else in the track. Like, it's just made for this one part, and you know that when you hear the track. And then that's just going through some reverb, a bit of auto pan, and yeah. So that was going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is available right in the top of the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there, because it's already available. Thank you so much, everybody. Again, you get this full track arrangement, everything laid out in a professional track that sounds really good in the style. So you can then go and learn how to make it and hopefully make some really good tracks of your own in the style if you've been stumped. Plus, you just get a bunch of great stuff to work with. You know, you can make a whole track just taking this stuff and rearranging it into its own thing. So definitely check that out in the top of the description. It really helps to support me. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.